Senate will come to order. Leading us in prayer today is the Reverend Sam Hanschke of Faith Lutheran Church here in Pierre. Following the prayer, the Pledge of Allegiance will be led by our pages of the day, Poppy Stevens of Rapid City Central High School and Ryler Stevics of Gregory High School.
We pray. Lord God, there are so many voices around us and voices inside of us that sometimes it's difficult to know what to follow. Grant your wisdom and patience to each of these senators, helping them to know what is helpful for the people of this state. Quiet the voices that are not helpful and give them focus on the way ahead. I pray this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Secretary will call the roll.
Senators Beal, Blunt, Carley, Crabtree, Davis, Dibert, Duhamel, Foster, Grove, Hone, Howard, Hulse, Jensen, Carr, Kolbeck, Lapke, Larson, Marty, Melhoff, Miskimmons, Nelson, Otten, Perry, Peterson, Pischke, Reed, Roll, Sauter, Shanefish, Smith, Vilhauer, Voigt, Voida, Whip, and Zickman. Mr. President, we have a quorum.
Approval of the journal.
Mr. President, the Committee on Legislative Procedure reports that the Secretary of the Senate has had under consideration the Senate Journal of the 31st day. All errors, typographical or otherwise, are duly marked in the temporary journal for correction, and we hereby move adoption of the report. Submitted, Chris Carr, Chair.
That has been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. That carries. Ladies and gentlemen of the Senate, is the Doctor of the Day here? There he is. I'm going to welcome the Doctor of the Day at this time. Dr. Jonathan McAravey is a doctor in Watertown. He practices family medicine and obstetrics at Prairie Lakes Brown Clinic in Watertown. In addition, he's the medical director for home health and hospice for Prairie Lakes Healthcare. He received his medical degree from the USD School of Medicine and completed his residency at the Center for Family Medicine in Sioux Falls, and he's an executive board member of the South Dakota Academy of Family Medicine. Let's thank him for helping us today. Senator Wepf. Yes.
Thank you. My family is here. Well, some of them anyway. I'll start from the right. My mother, Lisa, and Nolan, my father, my grandfather, Willis, and grandmother, Shirley, and Corliss, and then my uncle, also named Nolan, interestingly enough. My grandparents are 96 and 91, respectively. They recently celebrated their 72nd wedding anniversary. I am quite proud of them and grateful to them for everything they've done to put me here. I'm jealous of them a little bit. They've had such a full life. They've had their health. They still live on their own. And now they get to watch as their third favorite grandson becomes a senator. So, so please help me welcome them today.
Welcome. Senator Nelson.
Thank you, Mr. President. Personal privilege.
Granted.
Well, I thought you needed some help today here in the Senate floor. I have two of my former students here visiting today with their families as well. So up front here we have Liam. Stand up. And I'll tell you what about Liam. Whenever he raised his hand, I either knew I was going to have 10 minutes of a wonderful history discussion, or I was going to be going home and having to research so that I could have a 10-minute great discussion the next day. So, and then Anna here as well, if you want to stand up, Anna. Anna is the sister to our page, Josh, and she is visiting here with her dad and with her grandpa and grandma. So welcome them to the Senate.
Welcome. Senator Voida,
Personal privilege?
granted.
Thank you, Mr. President. Well, today we have the Gregory Senior Government class under the direction of Jesse Mullenberg. If you guys could all stand so that we can welcome you here today.
Communications.
Mr. President and members of the Senate, I have the honor to inform you that on March 4th, 2026, I approved Senate Bills 21, 25, 165, 26, 27, 71, 75, and 129, and all have been deposited in the office of the Secretary of the State. Respectfully submitted, Larry Roden, Governor.
Reports of standing committees.
Mr. President, the Committee on Senate Health and Human Services reports it has had the following under consideration and returns the same with the following recommendations. House Bill 1138 do pass. House Bills 1006, 1148, and 1149 do pass, and having been certified uncontested, be placed on the consent calendar. House Bill 1160 was deferred to the 41st legislative day. Submitted, Kevin Jensen, Chair. Also, Mr. President, the Committee on Senate Local Government reports it has had the following under consideration and returns the following recommendations. House Bill 1245 do pass. House Bill 1320 be amended and do pass, and having been certified uncontested, be placed on the consent calendar. Also, House Bills 1161 and 1258 do pass, and having been certified uncontested, be placed on the consent calendar. Submitted, Tim Reed, Chair. The Committee on Senate Judiciary reports that it has had the following under consideration and returns the same with the following recommendations. House Bill 1040 and 1108 do pass. House Bills 1045, 1175, 1183, 1280, 1298, and 1300 do pass, and having been certified as uncontested, be placed on the consent calendar. House Bill 1176 be referred to the Senate Committee on Appropriations with a do pass recommendation. HCR 6015, which was deferred to the 41st legislative day. Submitted, Steve Kolbeck, Chair. Mr. President, the Committee on Senate State Affairs respectfully reports that it has the following under consideration and returns the following recommendations. House Bill 1302 and 1303 do pass. House Bill 1232 do pass, and having been certified uncontested, be placed on the consent calendar. House Bill 1215, 1274, and 1323 be amended and do pass. Jim Melhoff, Chair. And, Mr. President, the Committee on Legislative Procedure reports that the Office of Engrossing and Enrolling has carefully compared Senate Bills 17, 42, 43, 45, 89, 98, 130, 133, 142, 180, 231, and 240, and finds all correctly enrolled. Also, the Committee on Legislative Procedure reports that Senate Bills 32, 81, 82, 88, 100, 101, 113, 138, and 197 were delivered to His Excellency the Governor for his approval at 9:13 a.m. March 4th, 2026. Respectfully, Chris Carr, Chair.
Messages.
Mr. President, I have the honor to inform you that Senate Bill 190 is lost on second reading and final passage. Also, I have the honor to return Senate Bills 15, 41, 90, 131, 132, and 214, which have been amended by the House, and your concurrence in the amendments is requested. Also, I have the honor to return Senate Bills 17, 42, 43, 45, 98, 130, 133, 142, 231, and 240, which have all passed the House without change. And finally, I have the honor to inform you that the House has concurred in Senate amendments to House Bill 1265.
Motions and resolutions.
Senator Melhoff moves that when we adjourn today, we adjourn to convene at 1 p.m. on Thursday, March 5th, 2026, the 33rd legislative day.
That has been moved and seconded. Are there any remarks? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. That carries.
Senator Melhoff moves that House Bills 1134 and 1135 be deferred to Thursday, March 5th, 2026, the 33rd legislative day.
That has been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. That motion carries.
Senator Kolbeck moves that the Senate do concur in House amendments to Senate Bill 36.
This has been moved by Senator Kolbeck and seconded that the Senate do concur in House amendments to Senate Bill 36. Are there any remarks? Senator Kolbeck.
Thank you, Mr. President. Yes, as you remember, this is the wildfire bill that we worked diligently on. It went over to the House. They made some amendments. As you can see, those are posted. And as it came back, all of those amendments took care of most of the opposition, not all. There were 2 no votes over in the House, but it comes back to us, and I would hope that you would concur with their amendments and pass the bill. Thank you.
Thank you. Further remarks on that motion? Seeing no further remarks, this is a roll call vote. When your name is called, those in favor vote aye. Those opposed, nay. The Secretary will call the roll.
Senators Beal, excused, Blanc, Carly, Crabtree, Davis, Dibert, Duhamel, Foster, Grove, Hone, Howard, Hulse, Jensen, Carr, Kolbeck, Lapke, Larson, Marty, Melhoff, Miss Gimmons, Nelson, Otten, Perry, Peterson, Pischke, Reed, Roll, Sauter, Shanefish, Smith, Vilhauer, Voigt, Voida, Whip, Zickman. Mr. President, we have 32 yeas, 2 nays, 1 excused.
So the motion,
Hone votes no. The totals now are yeas 31, nays 3, excused 1.
so that motion having received an affirmative vote of a majority of the members elect, the President declares the motion carried and the amendments are concurred in.
Senator Howard moves that the Senate do concur in House amendments to Senate Bill 164.
It's been moved by Senator Howard and seconded to concur in the House amendments to Senate Bill 164. Are there any remarks? Senator Howard.
Thank you, Mr. President. So this was actually an amendment that I brought over on the House side, so I would ask that you vote aye on this. It was an issue brought up by Secretary Perry and DPS working through the process. So basically, it was one word changing must to may. It gives more leeway to our law enforcement as to what to cite as the foundation, what they cite when they're giving citations under this statute. So things change at the federal level, so this gives our law enforcement some leeway whether to cite under the federal regulations or under state statute. So I would ask for your favorable consideration. Thank you.
Further remarks on the motion? Seeing no further remarks, the question before the Senate is Senator Howard's motion that the Senate do concur in House amendments to Senate Bill 164. This is a roll call vote. When your name is called, those in favor vote aye, those opposed nay. The Secretary will call the roll.
Senators Beal excused, Blanc, Carly, Crabtree, Davis, Dibert, Duhamel, Foster, Grove, Hone, Howard, Hulse, Jensen, Carr, Colbeck, Lapke, Larson, Marty, Melhoff, Ms. Gimmons, Nelson, Otten, Perry, Peterson, Pischke, Reed, Roll, Sauter, Shanefish, Smith, Vilhauer, Voigt, Voida, Whip, Sickman. Mr. President, we have 32 yeas, 2 nays, 1 excused.
So that motion having received an affirmative vote of a majority of the members elect, the President declares that the motion carried and the amendments are concurred in.
Senator Melhoff moves that 6H-1 be suspended for the Rule 6H-1 be suspended for the sole purpose of commemoration introductions.
It's been moved by Senator Melhoff and seconded that Rule 6H-1 be suspended for the purpose of commemoration introductions. Are there any remarks, Senator Melhoff?
Thank you, Mr. President. Yes, we had a member of the body that had intended to introduce a commemoration, and through no fault of their own, when they tried to do it, they missed the deadline by that much. So I would like if we could honor our fellow senator to get the opportunity to introduce their commemorations.
All right, further remarks on that motion? Seeing no further remarks, this is a roll call vote, and suspension of the rules requires a 2/3 majority vote. So when your name is called, those in favor vote aye, those opposed nay. The Secretary will call the roll.
Senators Beal excused, Blanc, Carly, Crabtree, Davis, Dibert, Duhamel, Foster, Grove, Hone, Howard, Hulse, Jensen, Carr, Colbeck, Lapke, Larson, Marty, Melhoff, Ms. Gimmons, Nelson, Otten, Perry, Peterson, Pischke, Reed, Roll, Sauter, Shanefish, Smith, Vilhauer, Voigt, Voida, Whip, Sickman, Mr. President, we have 33 yeas, 1 nay, 1 excused.
So the motion having received an affirmative vote of a 2/3 majority of the members elect, the president declares the motion carried and the rules are suspended.
Yesterday, Senator Vilhauer announced his intention to reconsider the vote by which House Bill 1048 lost. Senator Vilhauer moves that the Senate do now reconsider the vote by which 1048 lost.
Is there a second? That motion has been made by Senator Vilhauer and seconded to reconsider the vote by which House Bill 1048 lost. Are there any remarks? Senator Vilhauer.
Thank you, Mr. President. Well, I don't have the usual reasons for a reconsideration. There were no unexpected absences yesterday. I don't have any amendments to offer, but I have had conversations since the vote yesterday from several of my colleagues on the floor here as far as another crack at considering this. That's my request for a consideration, and I'd also ask if it is passed that it be immediately placed on the calendar.
All right, any further remarks on the motion to reconsider? Seeing none, the question before the Senate is Senator Vilhauer's motion to reconsider the vote by which 1048 lost. This is a roll call vote. When your name is called, those in favor vote aye, those opposed nay. The Secretary will call the roll.
Senators Beal excused, Blanc? Carly? Crabtree? Davis? Dibert? Duhamel? Foster? Grove? Hone? Howard? Hulse? Jensen? Carr? Kolbeck? Lapke? Larson? Marty? Melhoff? Miskimmons? Nelson? Otten? Perry? Peterson? Pischke? Reed? Roll? Sauter? Shanefish? Smith? Vilhauer? Voigt? Voida? Whip? Zickman? Hone? Mr. President, we have 25 yeas, 9 nays, 1 excused.
So that motion having received an affirmative vote of a majority of the members elect, the President declares the motion carried, and House Bill 1048 will be up for reconsideration and final passage.
House Bill 1048. As a reminder, the title is An Act to Make an Appropriation for the Expansion of Broadband Infrastructure and to Declare an Emergency.
House Bill 1048, having had its second reading, is up for consideration and final passage. Are there any remarks? Senator Vilhauer.
Thank you, Mr. President. Well, not a whole lot to say since yesterday from my standpoint. Just to remind you that this is, I think everybody probably got the map that was passed out showing the areas within the state where we do have a lack of coverage or under coverage. To that extent, I just want to say that this is a priority of the Trump administration, administered through the Department of Commerce, and I just really ask that we support this, because if we don't, someone else will take advantage of it and utilize funds that are designated for South Dakota. Thank you.
Thank you. Further remarks? Senator Howard.
How did you know, Mr. President?
Well, you were standing.
Thomas Jefferson once said, "In matters of style, swim with the current. In matters of principle, stand like a rock." And I'm going to ask everyone who voted no yesterday to stand like a rock and vote no today. Our founding fathers never envisioned us taking money out of the pockets of taxpayers involuntarily for things such as this that are so clearly interfering in the free market. I strongly believe that history matters. I believe that principles matter. You know, I handed out a copy of the article that talks about Davy Crockett's speech to Congress, Not Yours to Give. Things like that matter. You know, and if you haven't read it, I hope you will take the time to read it. And I know some of you are internally probably rolling your eyes at what I'm saying, but I truly believe that our founding fathers believed in limited government, and they passed those principles on to us, and this is such a flagrant violation of those principles. We're talking about just over 7,000 homes. That's it. We have already spent over $300 million on broadband in this state between what the state has given, the federal taxpayers have given, and the industry match. Of this, and we have already brought high-speed broadband to approximately 32,000 homes. So of the 7,000 homes that are left, 2,700 will be satellite-based. Well, the satellites are already there that they could use. These are just, we're going to be using taxpayer funds to help other companies launch other satellites. And then 177 are going to be connected via cell towers, and then just over 4,000 will be by fiber. So for all the reasons that I also said yesterday, I'm urging a no vote. The world is not going to come to an end if we say this is an abuse and a waste of taxpayer funds. Lincoln once said, and you can tell, I love Founding Fathers quotes because I think we have a lot to learn from them, but he once said, be sure you put your feet in the right place, then stand firm. So I'm asking, if you voted no yesterday, to please stand firm, and if you voted yes, please consider voting no today. Thank you.
Thank you. Further remarks, Senator Perry.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is important. HB 1048, we're looking at three different things that I identified. One would be economic growth. This would be good for small business, remote work, new employers moving to the rural communities. The second thing that I thought was education access. You know, people talk about the unintended consequences. This is the unintended benefit. It's going to help with our kids doing homework online and digital tools. It's going to make things better, especially in the rural areas. And health access. Telehealth, telemental health, better access for medical and reduces long travel for us going there and for them coming here. So it makes things better for everyone. And this takes the millions of dollars. If we don't take the money, it'll go to another area, maybe Minnesota. We have skin in the game here in South Dakota right now because we've given money from our general fund and it's been matched by other groups. We are in the game and we're in the game to win. And the way you win is you take things like this $87 million and you use it effectively. And South Dakota will not do anything but benefit from us saying yes.
Thank you. Further remarks, Senator Melhoff.
Thank you, Mr. President. Question for the senator from Pennington County.
State your question.
I'm wondering what the source of the information that you provided that there are satellites currently in place and that this expenditure will just result in new satellites being launched that won't benefit South Dakota.
Senator Howard, do you wish to respond to that question?
Yes, Mr. President. Well, as far as the new satellites being launched, that was part of the appropriations briefing on this. So part of this funding is literally going to pay to reserve space on satellites that they're launching. They called it like a web or net or something, I don't know. Then the other part, another senator in here did research, reached out to confirm that Starlink is available right now across South Dakota. So.
For the remark, Senator Jensen.
Thank you. I won't take a lot of time. But has anybody done the math? 89 million, 7,000 homes. That's blank here. $12,700 per home. $12,700 per home. Think about that. Has anybody given you $12,000 to get your internet connection?
Thank you. Further remarks, Senator Reed.
Thank you, Mr. President. Well, we have to take a look at the satellite situation, and we have to remember that the capacity and the satellites themselves are going to where there are high population areas. Now, these are coming up on Starlink over time, but if you don't have the capacity, you may be on Starlink. They don't promise you what capacity you're going to have or what your download's going to be. All they say is you're going to be able to be connected. And so we talk about this being high-speed internet. If these satellites don't have the capacity, you're not going to get your high-speed internet. And they're putting satellites, I follow this quite closely, and they're putting satellites very often up. They're trying to create this net, but it's not there right now, and they're going to give capacity to where the most of the population is. That's how you make money. You're not going to go where there's onesie twosies. You're not going to put your capacity in that area, and that's what we're having to do here. So I would ask that you support this measure and make sure, and we got to make sure these people have internet. It's just the way of life. I wonder, talking about Thomas Jefferson, what he would say about this, what we're trying to do today. I'm sure they'd call it witchcraft. They wouldn't understand it, but we've moved along. We're not back in those times. These are the times that we live in now, and people need high-speed internet, so I'd ask for your support.
Thank you. Further remarks, Senator Souter.
Thank you, Mr. President. I spoke on this yesterday, and I'm still going to be a very firm yes on this. If we were to dig in fiber today on the east side of the river, it costs anywhere from $30,000 to $50,000 a mile. That's proven. I have facts for that. So if you looked at that map that someone put on our desk today, a very informational map, there's the west side and the east side, a little bit of it. We have places that cannot have fiber put in for any less than that amount. Also, we have to consider, we're thinking about, it's $12,000 a family, there's 7,000 people today. Let's not think of today. Let's think of 10 years from now, 20 years from now. Hopefully there's more families than that. Hopefully there's more miles than that. We're not just talking about today. The house that I grew up in was wired for electricity, except for one bedroom, because that's where the old hired man slept. He didn't need electricity in that room. They never thought down the road 50 years later when their granddaughter slept in that room, and I had to run an extension cord from the bathroom into my room just to have an alarm clock or a lamp beside my bed. They didn't think ahead. Let's us think ahead, and this is one way we can provide for the future in broadband for our families.
Thank you. Further remarks, Senator Dybert.
Thank you, Mr. President. Being a cartographer, I looked at this map right away and I noticed a couple things. If you look at the map, over a third of Pennington County is underserved, Sturgis is underserved, Belle Fourche is underserved, but most importantly, there's one county and one legislative district you cannot even see because it's underserved. That's my district. You can't even see it because there's so much symbology on it saying it's underserved. So this is a real easy vote for me. I ask you to vote yes.
Thank you. Further remarks, Senator Grove.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to ask the sponsor a question.
State your question.
When you look at this map, I'm assuming you gave that out, the bottom where it's in Todd County, am I looking at that right? Red is unserved?
Would you wish to respond, Senator
Yes, I will.
Miller? Go ahead.
Let's see, the map I have in front of me, I believe, I had a different map yesterday. I believe the red is unserved and the green is underserved.
Further remarks, Senator Grove.
Yes, Mr. President. What I'd like to say is this. I understand that for many of you, getting your Wi-Fi is not a problem. But when you're looking at a county like one of my counties that it says unserved, that means when they're calling for an ambulance service, that ambulance has all kinds of high-tech technology in it. We've done a lot with the Meditech and all that kind of stuff. I want to tell you, when they come to Spring Creek Community, all of it goes off. There's no cell phone, There's no communication in the ambulance. And so imagine you being someone that's been called to an emergency and you're going into a community, which by the way is amazingly beautiful down there. When you go in that place, you have no service. So if it goes down, you have no way of calling for help. So this is not just it's a comfort, this is a very serious thing, and it impacts people in life and death situations. So I'm asking you to support the bill. Thank you.
Thank you. Further remarks on 1048? Does anyone wish to speak? Senator Carley.
Thank you, Mr. President. Yeah, again, we're back to the same thing, hearing the scare of technology. There's not a scare. The new technology is what we need to use. This is old technology we're considering funding. We've been talking about satellite. Okay, let's say you're scared of satellite. How about WiMAX? Probably some of you use that. It's a little dish on your house that beams 5 to 10 miles or even microwave a few miles away. You can get internet that way as well. There's plenty of technological options. We don't have to necessarily be using fiber, and there's a lot cheaper options too. Someone today told me, oh, Starlink only reaches 2 places in South Dakota. That's why we don't want Starlink. Well, guess what? My dot wasn't on his graph of where my house is and where my RV is that happens to get Starlink. Okay, that just was false. You can get it anywhere in South Dakota very easily. Anywhere remote, if you can see the sky, you can put a dish very inexpensively and get internet access. Someone mentioned, oh, well, the satellites are going to fill up with speed and going to run out of space. Did you know that same thing happens with fiber? You have a fiber coming to your house, there's a limit to that. If they put a lot of customers on that, guess what? Your speeds are reduced. So that's a false argument there. The money, let's talk about the money for a second. I've heard several straw man arguments. Oh, it's going to go back. It's going to go to other states. Now let's first of all look at the money. How does the money get here? There's not suitcases of cash that they have printed they're bringing here and we're giving them back and then they're handing it to another state. No, these are zeros they print in their computers and they hand us those zeros, and if we don't use them, they delete those zeros out of thin air. Okay, these are zeros of money that does not exist. We're in massive deficit. Additionally, with the money as well, recently the Trump administration, I read that with the ACLP report, they're indicating there's $21 billion of unspent funds in this BEAD program. And guess what the Trump administration is asking? You know what? Let's bring those back, and here's the quote. They want them to represent savings for the taxpayers. That would be savings for the taxpayers if that wasn't used. Not we're going to go hand it out to Minnesota or we're going to hand it out to New York. Finally, ambulance and fire. This isn't going to help ambulance and fire. Ambulance and fire, they already have some pretty good tech, as I heard about. Additionally, a fire vehicle could throw a Starlink dish right on top that's used for RVs. Now they have high-speed internet right on that fire equipment. $50 a month. Done. Anywhere they go in the Black Hills, they got internet access, and then all their phones work and so forth. So for those reasons and many more, I'd ask that we resist this and not take the boondoggle of $87 million for money we do not need.
Thank you. Further remarks on House Bill 1048, Senator Kolbeck.
Well, I'm just going to try one more time, but somebody a long, long time ago, smarter than me, decided that if you live on the East Coast and the West Coast, we're going to do what's called universal service funding. That's a different set of funding, but they thought that if you're going to have a telephone, back when Ma Bell started, that you are better served, we are better served as a country if everyone has that access. And that's why universal service funding came around, because they thought that we as a country were better if everyone could communicate through a telephone. And that's what this is about. So what happened is we got rid of our telephones, we got rid of the push button, we got rid of the whole rotary dial, that's gone, that's done. So now we're moving on to broadband. And 20 years ago, when I worked with the FCC, when we started talking about this stuff, we talked about the free market, and we talked about where all this stuff is going to go. Satellites, it's all been talked about. But one thing that has been true is the free market doesn't take care of everything. How do we know that? Because we have green dots and red dots. If the free market was going to take care of this, it would have. Fiber isn't new. I used to slice fiber in 2002, 2001 when I was a technician working for a local telephone co-op. This is not new technology. No, it's not. And are we moving on? Yes, we are. We're moving on to fixed wireless and we're doing things. And all of that is in this. So the way the process works is you can bid on this $87 million. South Dakota companies bid on this $87 million. And then every dime goes into the South Dakota ground where it goes to a South Dakota technician who goes home and feeds his family. And once he feeds his family, then he goes to a football game and he does something else. That's where this $87 million is used. And we can debate whether we give the money back, whether we give the $87 million back, whether it does go back or don't go back. And we can also have a really good debate on whether we should give the $2 billion in our general budget back. But let's just get back to put this all down and we talk about this. This is about a process. This is about a bid. This is about everybody having access to security and everybody having access to a telephone because we are all better for it as a country and as a state. Please vote yes.
Thank you. Further remarks on 1048, Senator Voida.
Thank you, Mr. President. Well, I'm going to be honest with the body. I've been really torn on this bill. I have nothing wrong with fiber. I know how fiber goes in the ground. It's kind of in my wheelhouse. I think fiber is infrastructure, and I think that is the state's job. What I really don't like is that the bid for the satellites went to the lowest bidder, which is good, and Amazon, I believe it's Amazon Kuiper, got that bid. And this is where I have a little bit of a rub. I got to ask myself, are we helping subsidize a company that is going to be competing with the likes of Starlink, who has been in the free market, who has done all of these things and is pushing technology further? And as I stand here and speak to you guys, I still don't know how I'm going to vote on this right now because, like I said, I really have a rub with that. But it's not all going to South Dakota contractors to put fiber in the ground, and so that's where I have an issue with this. So just take that into consideration.
Thank you. Further remarks? Senator Melhoff.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Mr. President. So this is money that's been appropriated by the federal government. Now, whether you like the fact that the federal government spends that money or not, it's been money that's been appropriated to benefit South Dakotans. And if you look at the map that you all have, there are a lot of South Dakotans that are underserved. And this money was appropriated to help those people. So you can say no and leave those people twisting in the wind on not having adequate broadband services, or you can vote yes, take the money, benefit your constituents. So I would recommend yes on this vote. It's good to stand on your principles, but when you're standing on your principles, you better make sure that they're built on a solid foundation. Thank you.
Thank you. Further remarks? Senator Voigt.
Thank you, Mr. President. I had an opportunity to serve a community that was disconnected in terms of opportunities for their students and their kids. One of the ways of doing that, if funding was a huge issue, so we started a distance school. At that time, a governor was running fiber to all the schools. We couldn't get it because we had to go through 25 miles of granite. And we tried satellite, and we ran into huge issues right away. It was called latency. Satellites would dump to our staff, wouldn't be real time. We could not get real time, dependable service. We had to go to fiber. That's still true in the western part of the state. That's still true. It's not dependable out there when you need it. It's like the old telephone system. You used to crank it to get service. You wanted better service. Eventually they developed it, so you just picked it up and it was there. People expect service, and I don't know that we this body should discriminate against those that don't have that service. That's what this is about. And we have the leverage right now to see that those people are able to get that service, that cable, that gives that dependable speed that they need, like all of us have probably.
Thank you. Further remarks? Senator Lapke.
I wasn't going to stand up on this one, but the good senator from Meade and Pennington kind of brought up a good point, and I think that is very well the case. Everybody should be treated equally. And I guess my concerns primarily come from, in my particular area, we've already had fiber go through 3 times. And every time that they've come through, this is going to last you for 100 years. Well, it went through the first time. Then they abandoned that line, came through again, abandoned that line and came through again. And so how responsibly are we spending taxpayer dollars when you have multiple runs going through one area when we don't even have anybody or everybody covered yet? So my concern lies in how responsibly have we spent the taxpayers' money.
Thank you. Further remarks? Is anyone with Senator Pischke?
Thank you, Mr. President. Well, this is a question for the Chair of Appropriations, so pay attention.
Oh, you're asking a question?
Yeah, I am asking a question to the Chair of Approps.
State your question.
The question is, you know, we've both been around here quite a while now, and I can remember some of these fights even when I was over in the House. Can you give me an approximate amount of dollars that we have either appropriated from general funds or that we have passed through of federal dollars that has gone to this specific purpose over the last 10 years?
Senator Otten, do you wish to respond to that? Maybe Senator Vilhauer would like to respond.
Can I answer that? I believe since this project started, just over $304 million, I believe, of which 85, I believe, has been state dollars. The federal dollars have been 120 million, something like that, and then private funds make up the balance. I believe are the numbers roughly.
Further remarks, Senator Pischke?
Yeah, maybe just a follow-up question then as well. You know, I don't know, what is this 87 million? I forget the number now we have in here. I guess then the follow-up then is how many more $1 million are we going to continue pouring into this idea? At what point do we ever finish this project of connecting people to the internet in the state of South Dakota? When does it end?
Are you posing that question to?
I do want to question, posing that a question to the Prime, I suppose.
All right, Senator Vilhauer, would you wish to respond to
Well,
that question?
this plan is designed to cover the last gaps, in the last mile in South Dakota. So beyond that, I don't know. I haven't got a crystal ball. I'm taking the word of the information that was presented to us in appropriations that this is to make up the last gaps here in South Dakota.
Further remarks, Senator Pischke? No. Does anyone wish to speak before Senator Howard speaks a second time? Senator Howard.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So in 2019, we had $5 million in general funds. 2020, $5 million in general funds, $7 million in federal. 21, $16.1 million in general, $41 million federal. 2022, we had $37 million in federal funds. 2023, $58 million in general funds and $3.4 million in federal funds. 2024, $743,000 in federal funds, for a total of over $84 million in general funds, over $88 million in federal funds, and then industry matching. So taxpayers have already paid for more than $172 million. And to answer the question, where will it end? It will never end. Because we all know that as soon as we have fiber laid to every single home, well, then there's going to be new technology that everyone has to have, and taxpayers are going to have to pay for that as well. So it will never end unless we say enough is enough. And as far as Thomas Jefferson, just that comment earlier, I have to say, you know, I firmly believe Thomas Jefferson would not have said, free candles for everyone, which is what we're doing here today.
Senator Smith.
Thank you, Mr. President. I was hoping that it would have been, we would have yielded our time before I had the opportunity to talk, but it didn't, so I guess I get to talk. The question was, or the statements have been how much we've spent, how much we've spent, how much we've spent. You could also look at that as how much have we invested, how much have we invested, how much have we invested. And I want you to just think about the amount of money our state generates through all of the different types of economic activity that we have in our state that rely on connectivity to the whole world. That's done with this broadband. Every corner of our state has an opportunity to do that. I want you to think about the economic impact of our state if we don't have those opportunities. The investment that we're making in our state is for the future. And it's not just for the future of people that live here or here. What this investment in our people is doing is helping everyone in our state have a level playing field so they can all participate in that economy that we say is strong here in South Dakota. I have also had the opportunity to sit outside of buildings and scab internet from places when I have not had access in different areas to work. It's very frustrating, and it slows you down. Let's think about this as an investment in our future, and things will change. There's no doubt about it. We aren't using the telegraph anymore. But I'm sure glad that they ran telegraph wires all over when they did. And then I'm really glad that they electrified our state. And I'm really glad that we had telephone lines in our state. And then we have cell towers in our, I mean, we change, yes we do. But something that doesn't change is our need to be connected. I thought the good senator from Minnehaha County talked about that history really well, you guys, about why we do this. We have to look at things not only as cost, but they are investments, because there is a big return on this investment in our state. Don't short our future in this state. Plan for the long game, invest.
Thank you. Further remarks, Senator Roll.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just want to comment, because obviously I know we have listeners at home, and I don't want them to have a false impression of our founding fathers, but as president, Thomas Jefferson actually signed the Act of 1806 that authorized the construction of the Cumberland Road, as I'm sure you know, Mr. President. That was the first federally funded road, and he received a lot of pushback for that, saying this federal government shouldn't be funding that, and he had some internal struggles with it as well, thinking that possibly Maryland should be paying for that road along with the rest of the states and territories going to the Ohio River. But you know, he was quoted as saying it's essential for the unity, security, and economic growth of the United States to be connected. If that's not what broadband does for our citizens, I'm not sure what is, because he described it as being essential for connecting commerce to the community. I would assume that in today's modern age, that describes broadband.
Thank you. Further remarks, Senator Marty.
A question for the Prime.
State your question.
Why were these communities not fiber optic when all this money was available?
Senator Vilhauer, do you wish to respond to that?
Not sure I can, but I'll give it a stab. I really don't know. These are areas, obviously, you look at the Black Hills area, and you got to believe the geography is a big part of that. Beyond that, I really can't answer the question. To the comment earlier as far as a cost, yes, the $12,000 per site is correct. It previously had been about $17,000 or $17,500 prior to that, but I can't answer your question specifically beyond that.
Further remarks, Senator Marty? No. Further remarks, Senator Carr.
Mr. President, I can't resist a good dog pile. We're all doing it.
I thought you showed a lot of restraint.
I have all year. It might be my last chance to say something, who knows? Well, I've been hearing this discussion for a long time about broadband. it always makes me think of an outhouse. And in particular, an outhouse that as a younger person, we used at our family lake cabin. And we also had to drill a well for water. We didn't have all the amenities that the city did just 10 miles away. And it took several years for us to get there. But that was the choice we made when we bought that lot and built a cabin and decided to have this other space outside of the city where those services are readily available. I guess I have a hard time listening to folks say, what about this guy that's living out here in the middle of nowhere on the top of a hill? I think you make certain choices and trade-offs when you decide where you're going to live. I know what it's like to live in a very small town and have to drive, 20 miles to go get groceries and things like that. I didn't make that choice for my adulthood. I now live in Sioux Falls. I like to have all those amenities very close by and all those services. So, because people are choosing to live more and more remotely, now it's the government's job to provide all these services to them just as if they lived in the city. I don't think that makes sense to me. I mean, we have TV shows dedicated to people living off the grid, right, that are getting by. We have folks that are building cabins in Alaska that use batteries and all sorts of other technology and satellites. Satellites do work. I know individuals that run IT and tech for Fortune 500 companies from an Airstream, travel around the country, put up their little satellite, and are able to be on their computer all day in Teams meetings, etc., working all the tech issues of that company. All due respect to the senator from Meade-Pennington, technology has changed, and we can't even keep up with the changes. I understand the issues. We heard about that 10 years ago. We talked about broadband and satellites not working and having the latency issues. That's not where we're at today. The technology's there. It's out there. I also, a few years ago, recall when we had a different president, we had Republican senators in Washington, D.C., talk about our debt and our deficit, how it's growing out of control. We got to do something. We got to cut. We got to do it. We got to do it. And I never saw anything come out of that. I mean, eventually we had Doge and they tried to do something. But here we are still spending these dollars in all sorts of areas. I think it's reasonable to ask, what is our role? Because I've been here long enough to hear about this economic development, and everybody needs this XYZ thing. Housing. We needed to have housing. This place needs jobs. Oh, now we got people that have jobs. Now they need housing. Well, now they have a house. Now they need daycare. So now we have to provide daycare. We have to get involved in all these different areas and keep providing these services. Now we got to make sure everybody has an airport, a really nice airport, an international airport. Where does it end? If we don't at some point draw a line and go, enough with the spending in all these areas, nobody ever will. Just because other people are taking these dollars doesn't mean that it makes it right that we should.
Thank you. Further remarks, Senator Webb.
You have a choice about where you live. I'm going to remember that argument when we discuss property tax at length. We listen to the same folks from the big cities in our state complain and complain and complain about how terrible it must be to live there. We do not have a choice about where we live. I don't have a choice where my grandparents built their legacy. The farm is where it is. I can't pick it up and move it. I'd probably move it somewhere that's warm in the wintertime, quite frankly, if I had the choice. But I'm sorry, it's insulting to those of us in the part of the state that are underserved. And life is just different for us. It costs some of y'all more on your property taxes to live where you are, and you're asking state government to come in and backfill that for you. But it's too much to ask when it's the other way around. We need to pass this.
Thank you. Further remarks? Senator, let's see. Does anyone wish to speak before Senator Perry speaks a second time? Senator Perry.
I think I'm going to yield to the sponsor.
What a good idea. Senator Vilhauer, would you like to close?
Absolutely. First of all, being my first term, I still consider myself a rookie. And I tell you what, I love the spirit to debate. I respect the views of the opponents. I thank the views of the proponents for speaking to this. I don't have a whole lot more to say, but I will, if we're going to go to the outhouse, I do want to say something about that. The good senator from Minnehaha County. I grew up utilizing an outhouse. Seriously. I was 17 years old before my folks had running water installed, so I know what it's like. And I tell you what, once they got that running water, we were in paradise for the rest of my time at home. So with that being said, please pass this.
Thank you. Seeing no further remarks, the question before the Senate is final passage of House Bill 1048. Because of the appropriation and the emergency clause, this is a 2/3 majority vote. When your name is called, those in favor vote aye, those opposed nay. The Secretary will call the roll.
Senators Beal excused, Blanc, Carley, Crabtree, Davis, Dybert, Duhamel, Foster, Grove, Hone, Howard, Hulse, Jensen, Carr, Kolbeck, Lapke, Larson, Marty, Melhoff, Miss Gimmons, Nelson, Otten, Perry, Peterson, Pischke, Reed, Roll, Sauter, Shanefish, Smith, Vilhauer, Voigt, Voida, Whip, Zickman, Peterson, Pischke, Mr. President, we have 24 yeas, 10 nays, 1 excused.
So House Bill 1048, having received an affirmative vote of a 2/3 majority of the members elect, the President declares the bill passed. Are there any questions on the title? Seeing none, it is deemed correct. Consideration of committee reports.
Senator Melhoff moves that the reports of the standing committees on Health and Human Services on House Bill 1220 and the Committee on Senate Appropriations on House Bill 1089 be adopted.
That has been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. That motion carries.
Senator Dybert moves that House Bill 1089 be placed on today's calendar and be immediately considered pursuant to JR 6F-6.
Is there a second? It's been moved by Senator Dybert and seconded that House Bill 1089 be placed on today's calendar and immediately be considered. Are there any remarks, Senator Dybert?
Thank you, Mr. President. Just a few remarks. You heard most of this yesterday. This bill went through both committees with no opposition. It had no votes on the House. I think it's worth a debate. We just had a nice long debate. I tried to make this one shorter, but I please ask you to vote yes so we can have the debate on this bill.
Thank you. Any further remarks on that motion? Seeing no further remarks, this is a roll call vote. When your name is called, those in favor vote aye, those opposed nay. The Secretary will call the roll.
Senators Beal excused, Blanc, Carley, Crabtree, Davis, Dybert, Duhamel, Foster, Grove, Hone, Howard, Hulse, Jensen, Carr, Kolbeck, Lapke, Larson? Marty? Melhoff? Ms. Gimmons? Nelson? Otten? Perry? Peterson? Pischke? Reed? Roll? Sauter? Shanefish? Smith? Vilhauer? Voigt? Voida? Whip? Zickman? Mr. President, we have 23 yeas, 11 nays, 1 excused.
So that motion having received an affirmative vote of a majority of the members elect, the President declares the motion carried, and the bill will be so placed.
House Bill 1089, as a reminder, an act to modify the distribution of revenues collected from severance taxation on new permits.
House Bill 1089, having had its second reading, is up for consideration and final passage. Are there any remarks? Senator Dybert.
Thank you, Mr. President. I think this is 1089, correct?
I think that's what I said, 1089.
Thank you. Gold has been a long part of our history in South Dakota. In fact, in the early days, the gold industry in the Black Hills supported most of the budget for the state of South Dakota. In the tough years, they went to the Black Hills and used gold money to supplement the budget to get through those times. The first severance tax was introduced in about 1935. Since that time, the state has revenue from the gold severance tax. In 1989, we changed that formula so that 20% of the severance tax went to a local effort, and it was capped at $1 million, and the 80% has continued to go on to the state. This money is based on the net profit of the mining company that's operational, $4 per ounce, and another $4 per ounce when it goes over a certain threshold on the market. So we've enjoyed those dollars at the state, close to $100,000, and since the local, $100 million, thank you, and only $1 million has gone locally. So what this bill does is it allows new mining operations that 20% of that stays locally in the 3 counties that have probable gold mining, and 80% comes to the state. It doesn't impact the 2026 or 2027 budgets. They stay strong. This only is for new mining operations. The money has got guardrails on it how it can be used, and that's in the original statute. It can be used to assist schools, roads, and economic hardship during the time of mining boom and bust. It's really nice to understand that this money is there to use, because what we don't realize is when all the exploration, which goes on first with mining, through the mining operations, and through the reclamation process, the state collects sales tax and excise tax during that whole process. Typically, a mine life is 40 to 60 years, so the state has revenue during that entire time. The county that the mine is in gets nothing. In fact, in the Black Hills, we have 3 counties that may qualify for this in gold mining. One is Lawrence County, one is Pennington County, the other is Custer County. What I find intriguing is 3 school districts within that area do not get state aid. So not only do they contribute more to the state through sales tax, excise tax, and severance tax, they don't enjoy any of those dollars. So what we're asking is to have a fair formula moving forward and not impact the budget today, but allow some of that money to stay local to provide the needs for upkeep of the roads and the social items and the other items associated with mining. I ask for your support. Thank you.
Thank you. Further remarks on House Bill 1089. Senator Howard.
Thank you, Mr. President. There is no doubt that mining can bring jobs and economic activity, but it also brings risk, and sometimes enormous risk. We've already learned that the hard way, that when mining projects go wrong, the bill does not land on a county desk. It lands on the desks of state and federal taxpayers. Think back to the Gilt Edge mine near Lead, and you can be reminded of that reality. When they declared bankruptcy in the late 1990s, the mine was abandoned with severe environmental damage. Cyanide heap leach operations contaminated water systems and created acid mine drainage problems that still require treatment today. The site became a federal Superfund site in 2000, and the cleanup has now cost well over $200 million, with ongoing treatment required indefinitely. And who paid the bill? Not the mining company. They're long gone. And their bonds only covered $6 million, if I remember the amount. It was less than $2 million. The cost fell largely to the federal Superfund program, with the state of South Dakota stepping in to help oversee the site. The Superfund program was created in 1980 to address the nation's most dangerous hazardous waste sites. Sites include abandoned mines, chemical plants, refineries, landfills, and manufacturing facilities, where contamination threatens human health or the environment. And we actually have 2 Superfund sites in the state. I don't know if everyone's aware of that. The Gilt Edge Mine, as well as a Whitewood Creek and Bunker Hill tailings contamination area. So that's the reality of projects of this scale. And when I say projects of this scale, the proponent says this is budget neutral right now. But Dakota Gold is looking to start up a new mine within a few years. So it may be budget neutral today. It will not be budget neutral by probably fiscal year 30. So what it means, there is potentially decades of production coming with the new mine coming online, and potentially enormous severance tax revenue. But it also means large-scale industrial operations and the possibility of long-term environmental liabilities. And the purpose of a severance tax is simple. When a non-renewable resource is taken out of the ground, the public receives compensation for the risks and long-term obligations that come with that extraction. And when something goes wrong, it is the public who pays. The lesson of Gilt Edge is simple. When the mine disappears, the taxpayers remain. So when we talk about distributing severance tax revenue, we should remember who ultimately carries the risk. For projects of this magnitude, the state must maintain the financial capacity to oversee environmental protections, respond to emergencies, and manage long-term reclamation responsibilities that can last generations. New mines means new revenue to address new liabilities at the state level. Gold leaves the ground once, but the liabilities do remain for decades. So given that history and given the scale of the mining projects being discussed in the Hills today, it's only reasonable that the state retain the severance tax revenue from these operations, because when the risks materialize, and they will, it is the state that must respond. And the question was asked in committee, even with the Wharf mine that already exists, because they were talking about, well, we bear the burden of damage to the roads, et cetera. And I asked, well, what about the roads going into Wharf? And they said, well, the main road going into Wharf is a state-owned road. So again, a lot of the responsibility is on the state. So I would urge a no vote on this.
Thank you. Further remarks on House Bill 1089? Senator Duhamel.
Thank you, Mr. President. A question of the prime sponsor.
State your question.
Wondering if the prime sponsor could explain why these sales and excise taxes do not stay locally.
Senator Dybert, do you wish to respond?
Certainly.
Go ahead.
The excise tax and sales tax is in the county, so none comes to the county, and the reason for that is all the mining operations are in the county currently. If they would operations were in the city, then they would collect a sales tax, but that's not available here. And most of the mining that takes place is outside the city taxation districts. So all the excise tax and sales tax goes to the state.
Further remarks, Senator Duhamel? No. Further remarks on House Bill 1089? Further remarks? Senator Carley.
Question for the prime.
State your question.
I was wondering, who owns the road that comes out of the Wharf mine directly out of there? Who owns that?
Senator Dybert, do you wish to respond to that?
Thank you. Yes, I will. The road that goes to the Wharf mine was built by the state to go to Terry Peak, and it was also maintained by the state when the other mining activities were up there. But you go north of the mine, and that's all county, and other areas that go into there are all county. So anything that travels on county roads to get to that site or off that site are in the county.
Further remarks, Senator Carley? No. Any further remarks on House Bill 1089? Senator Dybert in closing.
Thank you. A few things that were brought up. The state determines the bonds on mines when they're permitted. The state has full control on realizing what bonds need to be issued to secure that the reclamation process is in place. The state does that. The other thing is the two Superfund sites. The first one is the Whitewood Creek area, which was all done prior to the Reclamation Act in 1969. That mining material was in there prior to that Reclamation Act. That's why it became a Superfund site, because there was no regulations at that time. So that's important things to know. The other thing is, regardless of what road goes into the operating mine today, the exploration that's going on right now by 3 companies are using county roads in 3 different counties. We had asked to have some support to take care of those roads during those times, since we don't receive any of the excise tax or sales tax. Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no further remarks, the question before the Senate is final passage of House Bill 1089. When your name is called, those in favor vote aye, those opposed nay. The Secretary will call the roll.
Senators Beal excused, Blanc, Carly, Crabtree, Davis, Dybert, Duhamel, Foster, Grove, Hone, Howard, Hulse, Jensen, Carr, Colbeck, Lapke, Larson, Marty, Melhoff, Miss Skimmons, Nelson, Otten, Perry, Peterson, Pischke, Reed, Roll, Sauter, Shanefish, Smith, Vilhauer, Voigt, Voida, Whip, Zickman, Foster, Blanc votes no. Mr. President, we have 21 yeas, 13 nays, 1 excused.
So House Bill 1089, having received an affirmative vote of a majority of the members elect, the President declares the bill passed. Are there any questions on the title? Seeing none, it's deemed correct. Consideration of the reports of conference committees.
Senator Roll moved that the report of the Conference Committee on Senate Bill 3, as found on page 441 of the Senate Journal, be adopted.
That has been moved by Senator Roll and seconded to adopt the report of the Conference Committee on Senate Bill 3. Are there any remarks? Senator Roll.
Thank you, Mr. President. Well, as the body knows, we passed this out of our chamber. It ended up going to the other chamber. They made a couple tweaks in House Committee. We ended up sending it to Conference Committee, and we tried to kind of claw back some of the rights that we were giving our citizens, and we were able to do that in a way that took our opponents and made them neutral. So I would ask the body to support it. I think it's a pretty good kumbaya moment where everybody kind of came together, and we got a good result that promotes more freedom for our citizens. So I'd say it's a win all around.
Thank you. Further remarks on the motion to concur, or to adopt the report, rather? Seeing no further remarks, this is a roll call vote. The question before the Senate is Senator Roll's motion to approve the report of the Conference Committee on Senate Bill 3. When your name is called, those in favor vote aye, those opposed nay. The Secretary will call the roll.
Senators Beal excused, Blanc, Carly, Crabtree, Davis, Dybert, Duhamel, Foster, Grove, Hone, Howard, Hulse, Jensen, Carr, Colbeck, Lapke, Larson, Marty, Melhoff, Miss Skimmons, Nelson. Otten. Perry. Peterson. Pischke. Reed. Roll. Sauter. Shanefish. Smith. Vilhauer. Voigt. Voida. Whip. Zickman. Howard. Mr. President, we have 34 yeas, 1 excused.
So that motion having received an affirmative vote of a majority of the members elect, the President declares the motion carried and the report adopted. Consideration of executive appointments.
Consideration of the executive appointment of Kevin Nyberg of Lincoln County, Sioux Falls, South Dakota, to the Game Fish and Parks Commission.
Question before the Senate is the appointment of Kevin Nyberg to the Game Fish and Parks Commission. Are there any remarks? Senator Webb.
Thank you, Mr. President. Kevin Nyberg resides in Sioux Falls. You may recognize Mr. Nyberg's name, particularly if you frequent Ace Hardware, as he is the CEO of Nyberg's Ace Corporation of Sioux Falls and Watertown. Mr. Nyberg has extensive knowledge in business and a bachelor's degree in political science and business administration from Augustana University in Sioux Falls. Mr. Nyberg is a board member of the South Dakota Retailers Association, the Augustana University Board of Trustees, and has served 11 years on the South Dakota Parks and Wildlife Foundation. He holds patron member status with Pheasants Forever and is a lifetime member of the Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation. Mr. Nyberg has a passion for outdoor recreation and hunting, particularly with his Labrador retrievers and friends on their property in White Lake. His family also maintains a cabin near Custer in the Black Hills. I ask for your support of Kevin Nyberg's appointment to the GF&P Commission, and I will add personally he is taking the spot of a predecessor of mine in the Senate from District 22, Jim White, who served in this chamber with distinction. So it's my privilege to present this to you all.
Thank you. Further remarks on that appointment? Senator Zickman.
Thank you, Mr. President. Well, I want to add to what the senator just read to you. Mr. Nyberg is a very good, he's a friend of mine. He has 2 of the Ace Hardware stores in my district. He's a very philanthropic person. One of the things that he has is a roundup program in his Ace Hardwares. I know he does in my district. And one of them was what it does is raises funds. You pay extra, a few extra funds or a few extra pennies or nickels or whatever, and it raises money for some kind of something. One of the things that is raised was about $50,000 for the Veterans Cemetery in Sioux Falls. And that was a time when we were trying to raise about $3 million to come through with the bill that told us that we had to raise the $3 million for the cemetery. So he and his family both do a lot of philanthropic projects. He's very involved in the shrine. He has something at his place downtown that he allows the shrine to have a booth there, and he's very, very involved in the shrine. So I encourage you, and also you Minnesota Viking fans, both of his daughters were cheerleaders for Minnesota Vikings. I don't know what that does for his nomination, Mr. Chair, but it could help in some, of course it could be detrimental in some situations. But he's a very philanthropic, he and his family are very philanthropic. And I would encourage your strong support for Kevin Nyberg. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Further remarks? Seeing no further remarks, the question before the Senate is, does the Senate advise and consent to the executive appointment of Kevin Nyberg of Lincoln County, Sioux Falls, South Dakota to the Game Fish and Parks Commission? This is a roll call vote. When your name is called, those in favor vote aye, those opposed nay. The Secretary will call the roll.
Senators Beal excused, Blanc, Carly, Crabtree, Davis, Dybert, Duhamel, Foster, Grove, Hone, Howard, Hulse, Jensen, Carr, Colbeck, Lapke, Larson, Marty, Melhoff, Miskimmons, Nelson, Otten, Perry, Peterson, Fischke, Reed, Roll, Sauter, Shanefish, Smith, Vilhauer, Voigt, Voida, Whip, Zickman, Howard. Mr. President, we have 34 yeas, 1 excused.
So the question having received an affirmative vote of a majority of the members elect, the President declares the appointment confirmed.
Consideration of the executive appointment of Chuck Spring of Meade County Union Center, South Dakota, to the Game Fish and Parks Commission.
Question before the Senate is the appointment of Chuck Spring to the Game Fish and Parks Commission. Are there any remarks? Senator Duhamel.
Thank you, Mr. President. Chuck Spring is a lifelong rancher from Union Center with deep roots in western South Dakota. He and his wife, Clarine, have been married for 51 years and proudly operate their ranch along with their 3 sons. Many of you may recognize Chuck's name for his service on the GF&P Commission from 2020 to 2024. Before joining the commission, Chuck contributed his time and expertise on the West River Deer Task Force and the Depredation Committee. Throughout his tenure, he was a strong advocate for responsible deer management, especially mule deer, working to balance conservation efforts with the needs of landowners and hunters. Chuck understands the land because he lives and works on it every day. He brings forward what he sees on the landscape and what he hears from his neighbors and fellow hunters. I encourage you to join me in supporting Chuck Spring's appointment to the GF&P Commission.
Thank you. Further remarks? Seeing no further remarks, the question before the Senate is, does the Senate advise and consent to the executive appointment of Chuck Spring of Meade County Union Center, South Dakota, to the Game Fish and Parks Commission? When your name is called, those in favor vote aye, those opposed nay. The Secretary will call the roll.
Senators Beal excused, Blanc, Carly, Crabtree, Davis, Dybert, Duhamel, Foster, Grove, Hone, Howard, Hulse, Jensen, Carr, Colbeck, Lapke, Larson, Marty, Melhoff, Miskimmons, Nelson, Otten, Perry, Peterson, Fischke, Reed, Roll, Sauter, Shanefish, Smith, Vilhauer, Voigt, Voida, Whip, Zickman, Howard. Mr. President, we have 34 yeas, 1 excused.
So the question having received an affirmative vote of a majority of the members elect, the President declares the appointment confirmed. And we are on the consent calendar.
Senator Melhoff requested that House Bill 1299 be removed from the consent calendar. Remaining on consent today, House Bill 1180, ensure the validity of non-compete agreements in the context of jointly owned business entities. House Bill 1238, protect financial institutions taking action to prevent the financial exploitation of consenting senior or vulnerable adults. House Bill 1292, limit the ability of a health carrier to recoup, recover, or retroactively deny previously paid claims. And House Bill 1311, require the reporting of funding given by certain persons and governments to institutions under the control of the Board of Regents and the South Dakota Board of Technical Education.
Items on the consent calendar were reported out of committee with no dissenting votes and are not subject to debate. Only questions for clarification purposes are appropriate. There will be one vote taken for all bills on the consent calendar. Are there any questions at this time? Seeing none, the question before the Senate is, shall the items on the consent calendar pass? As your name is called, those in favor say aye, those opposed nay. The Secretary will call the roll.
Senators Beal excused, Blanc, Carly, Crabtree, Davis, Dybert, Duhamel, Foster, Grove, Hone, Howard, Hulse, Jensen, Carr, Colbeck, Lapke, Larson, Marty, Melhoff, Miskimmons, Nelson, Otten, Perry, Peterson, Pischke, Reed, Roll, Sauter, Shanefish, Smith, Vilhauer, Voigt, Voida, Whip, Zickman. Mr. President, we have 34 yeas with 1 excused.
The consent calendar items having received a majority vote of the members-elect, the items on the calendar are declared passed. Are there any questions on the titles? Seeing none, they're deemed correct. We are on the debate calendar, second reading of House Bill.
House Bill 1017, an act to permit the board of a school district to require that certain students receive instruction in alternative settings.
House Bill 1017, having had its second reading, is up for consideration and final passage. Are there any remarks? Senator Nelson.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, I rise today in support of House Bill 1017. Our teachers and students face increasingly aggressive and violent behavior. When a student's actions cause physical harm or major disruption, current solutions fall short. We must protect the safety of most students while providing necessary help to those in crisis. This bill provides a critical tool for the school boards to intervene when behavior disrupts the functioning of the classroom. It is not about abandonment. It's about providing a safe alternative by allowing districts to move disruptive students to settings outside the regular classroom, to give teachers the ability to actually teach, and give other students the peace they need to learn. HB 1017 fits within the current laws and does not conflict with federal protections. It preserves parents' rights, ensures parents' inclusion in all decisions, and simply seeks fairness for families. HB 1017 also requires, by or before the second Friday of June each year, the school boards report to the South Dakota Department of Education all students who were assigned to an alternative instructional setting during that academic year. We cannot ignore reports of injuries and property damage in our schools. House Bill 1017 is a necessary step towards regaining some control over our educational environments. I urge my colleagues to vote yes. Thank you.
Thank you. Further remarks on House Bill 1017? Seeing no further remarks, the question before the Senate is final passage of House Bill 1017. When your name is called, those in favor vote aye, those opposed nay. The Secretary will call the roll.
Senators Beal excused, Blanc, Carly, Crabtree, Davis, Dybert, Duhamel, Foster, Grove, Hone, Howard, Hulse, Jensen. Carr. Colbeck. Lapke. Larson. Marty. Melhoff. Miss Gimmons. Nelson. Otten. Perry. Peterson. Kischke. Reed. Roll. Sauter. Shanefish. Smith. Vilhauer. Voigt. Voida. Whip. Sickman. Mr. President, we have 33 yeas, 1 nay, 1 excused.
So House Bill 1017, having received an affirmative vote of a majority of the members elect, the President declares the bill passed. Try that again, harder. There you go. Are there any questions on the title? Seeing none, it's deemed correct.
House Bill 1200, an act to make an appropriation for victim services provided by nonprofit organizations.
House Bill 1200, having had its second reading, is up for consideration and final passage. Are there any remarks? Senator Reed.
Thank you, Mr. President. I do have an amendment. It's Amendment E.
You have Amendment E, and are you moving it at this time?
Yes, I am.
Is there a second? And it has been distributed or posted?
Yes.
And you would wish to speak to it?
Yes, please.
Go ahead.
Amendment E, as you know, we're figuring out what we can spend our one-time funds on, and it just moves the funding amount from $101 to $102, and that way we can take care of it in conference committee and such as we work through our priorities. I'd appreciate your support.
Further remarks on the motion to amend? Seeing none, this is a voice vote. Those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. That carries. Further remarks on House Bill 1200?
Mr. President.
Senator Reed.
Thank you, Mr. President. House Bill 1200 are funding grants for victim services. These shelters serve over 15,000 victims annually here in South Dakota, and that continues to increase. We ended up over the past 5 years where we've had a funding crisis, and that's where the federal, what's called the VOCA funds, collapsed. At one time, we were receiving $15 million a year, and now that's dropped down to $4.5 million. We've had service cuts because of this, and we've talked quite a bit about losing 2 different shelters in this state. When you don't have these shelters, a lot can go wrong. Number one, you've got people that are out there that are homeless for the time because of what's gone on. They need a place to go. Plus, when they're there, that's where you can start providing the services that they may need. And if it is, for example, there's also rape shelters. If there's some work that needs to be done so they can go after the perpetrator of the crimes, that can start when they're there. So this is important to make sure people are protected. Plus, when law needs to get involved, that can also be done. So this funding, we did $5 million last year. We hope to get to $5 million also again this year. If you take a look on your desk, there's paperwork that HB 1200 is on top. This shows the amount of funding that went into each of your districts. What services or what shelters that actually have been provided funds in your district. This is very important for everybody across South Dakota. These survivors of this need our help, and so I'd appreciate a yes vote on House Bill 1200. Thank you.
Thank you. Further remarks on House Bill 1200? Further remarks? Seeing no further remarks, the question before the Senate is final passage of House Bill 1200. Because of the appropriation, this is a 2/3 majority vote. When your name is called, those in favor vote aye, those opposed nay. The Secretary will call the roll.
Senators Beal excused, Blanc. Aye. Carly. No. Crabtree. Aye. Davis. Aye. Dibert. Aye. Duhamel. Aye. Foster. Aye. Grove. Aye. Hone. Aye. Howard. Aye. Hulse. Aye. Jensen. Aye. Carr. Aye. Colbeck. Aye. Lapke. Larson. Marty? Melhoff? Miss Gimmons? Nelson? Otten? Perry? Peterson? Fischke? Reed? Roll? Sauter? Shanefish? Smith? Vilhauer? Voigt? Voida? Whip? Zickman? Mr. President, we have 32 yeas, 2 nays, 1 excused.
So House Bill 1200, having received an affirmative vote of a 2/3 majority of the members elect, the President declares the bill passed. Are there any questions on the title? Seeing none, it's deemed correct. Senator Melhoff.
Could I have a personal privilege?
That's granted.
Thank you, Mr. President. At the back of the chamber here, I just noticed it today, but there is a basket that's full of Gary's Chex Mix, which was prepared by his daughter, Michelle Paulson, and the family. And along with that are some pictures and a fairly lengthy message to the senators. And I would encourage everybody to take a moment to go back and read this, because we all know how much we cared about Gary and what he meant to us. This gives us kind of a glimpse into what serving here and the relationships that he had with us meant to him. So I would like to thank Michelle Paulson and Gary's family for continuing to think about the Senate. And again, I'd encourage everybody to read this. Thank you.
Very nice, thank you.
House Bill 1209, an act to require employment verification eligibility through the E-Verify program and to provide a penalty therefore.
House Bill 1209, having had its second reading, is up for consideration and final passage. Are there any remarks? Senator Nelson.
Thank you again, Mr. President. Thank you. Fellow senators, today we have HB 1209. E-Verify, operated by the U.S. Department of Homeland Security, is in partnership with the Social Security Administration, allows employers to quickly confirm that new hires are legally authorized to work in the United States. Under current law, only public employers and contractors are required to use E-Verify, while private employers may choose whether to participate. This bill extends that responsibility to all employers with more than 50 employees, requiring verification within 20 days of a new hire's first day of work. This bill will also allow employers some leeway. As we know, when the federal government shutdowns, some things get shut down too. So this will provide some leeway in case that does happen. And it also protects employers using E-Verify in good faith, and they will not be liable for any civil penalty arising from an employee's work authorization or actions of third-party staffing. I ask for your yes vote. Thank you.
Thank you. Further remarks on House Bill 1209? Further remarks, Senator Dybert.
Thank you, Mr. President. Yes, I have to comment that the sponsor did a great job taking an amendment that was very important and putting it in the bill, so I support this. Thank you.
Thank you. Further remarks? Seeing no further remarks, the question before the Senate is final passage of House Bill 1209. When your name is called, those in favor vote aye, those opposed nay. The Secretary will call the roll.
Senators Beal, excused, Blanc, Carley, Crabtree, Davis, Dybert, Duhamel, Foster, Grove, Hone, Howard, Hulse, Jensen, Carr, Colbeck, Lapke, Larson, Marty, Melhoff, Miss Gimmons, Nelson, Otten, Perry, Peterson, Fischke, Reed, Roll, Sauter, Shanefish, Smith, Vilhauer. Voigt. Voida. Whiff. Zickman. Duhamel. Carr. Mr. President, we have 32 yeas, 2 nays, 1 excused.
So House Bill 1209, having received an affirmative vote of a majority of the members elect, the President declares the bill passed. Are there any questions on the title? Seeing none, it's deemed correct.
House Bill 1244, an act to repeal the Special Donation Fund and make an appropriation to the Department of Education for the provision of a grant to support the Jobs for America's Graduates South Dakota program.
House Bill 1244, having had its second reading, is up for consideration and final passage. Are there any remarks? Senator Reed.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members of the Senate, I'm not going to bury the lead here today. For more than 15 years, Jobs for American Graduates of South Dakota, or JAG-SD as you hear it called, has been quietly changing the trajectory of students across our state. What began as a small pilot program has grown into a trusted, results-driven model that schools, employers, and communities are believing in. JAG South Dakota has a 99% graduation rate. 99%. A 99% retention rate, they stay in the program, and it's very important to note that 88% of the students move into full-time employment, higher education, or military service after graduation. The demand for the program that started with 120 students is now at 650. And this is growth in our cities across the state where the programs are. It's important to note, to qualify, a student must face at least 6 barriers to success. In South Dakota, the average JAG student faces 13. Many are navigating poverty, family instability, lack of work experience, or parents who did not graduate from high school. So back to the 88%. These students move into full-time employment, higher education, or military service after graduation, not in our social safety nets and not in our prisons. These students had barriers that can result in being part of the correction system. It's a pay me now or pay me later situation. So how does JAG accomplish this? Through mentorship, accountability, and real-world skill building, students learn how to apply for jobs, interviews, communicate professionally, manage finances, and set goals. They build resilience and responsibility. I know it was about 3 sessions ago sitting in the education committee, and the JAG students were just visiting. They weren't there for any specific purpose for a bill, and we were on a bill, and one of the students got up and decided that she was going to testify. She had an interest in this bill. And it was very, very impressive how she put her thoughts together. We were all up there smiling and then kind of asked her a few questions afterwards. And she said, no, I just thought I was interested. We thought, is this part of your program? No, I was just interested in this issue. It was very impressive. Most JAG funding comes from local school districts. School boards committing the majority, school boards are committing the majority of the dollars. And we only get one opportunity to prove the program works. We have been intentional about sustainable growth because sustainability matters more than speed. House Bill 1244 provides a one-time investment of $500,000 to help JAG South Dakota attract private and federal dollars, strengthen existing programs, and thoughtfully expand while maintaining strong oversight within the Department of Education. It serves as a catalyst to diversify funding and reduce long-term reliance on the state general fund. Please invest in young people who are becoming the best of South Dakota and help supporters continue to grow the program with funding from private sources. I respectfully ask for your support. Thank you.
Thank you. Further remarks on House Bill 1244. Senator Roll.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just also want to rise in support. My former seatmate is very active in this program, and he actually got me involved with this program. And there's 2 different JAG classes in my district that I've had the pleasure of going out and speaking with these kids. We got to meet them when they're up at the Capitol, and I'll get a chance to go see them after session as well. And I got to tell you, when he first convinced me, I kind of thought, well, yeah, sure, I can give an afternoon to go help some kids. And I got to be honest, I might have got more out of it than they did. They were a bunch of bright kids that were engaged, that asked amazing questions, and that have really successful futures ahead of them. We just need to give them the tools to be able to do that. Quite frankly, I've stayed in contact with a couple of them, And it's a really cool program that for the investment that we're giving in South Dakota, it's worth every single penny of it. And I would ask you guys to support it because these kids matter.
Thank you. Further remarks? Senator Miskimmons.
Thank you, Mr. President. I couldn't be more proud of what this program achieves in the state of South Dakota. But I just want to emphasize they're so frugal at the dollars they spend. And this program runs out of the basement of a lady that lives across the street from me. But touching the lives of this many kids and changing their futures is something we need to support. Please support this bill.
Thank you. Further remarks on House Bill 1244? Senator Carley.
Thank you, Mr. President. Yeah, we saw some of these kids come in and give their testimonies, and it was actually amazing. These kids have developed really well, and they're like good public speakers, and yet at young ages. And I was impressed by them. I was also impressed that they came in and said they raise funds to fund this program, and they went through their finances and told us $800,000 we have already allocated annually from the state to them. We give that through the Department of Education, so they're already receiving that, over $800,000. And then they raised $600,000 in donations. And so my encouragement would be we need to keep this program. It's amazing. It's a great program, and it's not going anywhere. They're doing a great job with what they have, but I think we need to encourage them to continue to get more donations rather than doling out more money of taxpayer fund. They clearly have the speakers to do it. All they need to do is put these kids in front of some great organizations or family organizations or even nonprofit organizations, and they would get the funds. And so I would encourage us not to fund it from the state. We're already doing that, $800,000 a year plus, but rather to bring this to others and receive the donations like they're already doing and continue this program and grow it as well. So I would urge a no vote.
Thank you. Further remarks on House Bill 1244? Senator Reed in closing.
Thank you, Mr. President. Well, this is what this is to do for that organization, is to get them set up so they can raise even more money. In the way that it's set up, they've struggled in receiving some of the larger gifts. There's a six-figure gift sitting out there that could help them continue. But until they have the starting funds that they can use for matching, and they're setting up their own 501c3, I think it's already set up, then they will be able to raise a lot of these funds themselves. We got great people that are part of this organization, as the senator from Aberdeen stated. One of our former colleagues is very involved in this, and he's a great fundraiser, and so is everybody that's involved. They will get more fundings, but we have to do this first. I urge your support.
Thank you. Seeing no further remarks, the question before the Senate is final passage of House Bill 1244. Because of the appropriation, this requires a 2/3 majority vote. When your name is called, those in favor vote aye, those opposed nay. The Secretary will call the roll.
Senators Beal excused, Blanc, Carley, Crabtree, Davis, Dybert, Duhamel, Foster, Grove, Hone, Howard, Hulse, Jensen, Carr, Colbeck, Lapke, Larson, Marty, Melhoff, Miskimmons, Nelson, Otten, Perry, Peterson, Fischke, Reed, Roll, Sauter, Shanefish, Smith, Vilhauer, Voigt, Voida, Whip, Zickman, Carr. Mr. President, 30 yeas, 4 nays, 1 excused.
So House Bill 1244, having received an affirmative vote of a 2/3 majority of the members elect, the President declares the bill passed. Are there any questions on the title, Seeing none, it is deemed correct.
House Bill 1262, an act to make an appropriation for non-residential, school-based therapeutic services facility in Brown County and to declare an emergency.
House Bill 1262, having had its second reading, is up for consideration and final passage. Are there any remarks? Senator Roll.
Thank you, Mr. President. Well, we just approved the policy on House Bill 1017, and House Bill 1262 is the location to be able to do that policy. Now, it's a one-time capital investment of $2 million to establish a non-residential school-based therapeutic day program in Northeast South Dakota that can host 24 students. It's a combination of not only state dollars, but also local fundraising efforts. Access to the intensive therapy services for young children in our region are extremely limited, which often has our students taking up seats in Sioux Falls and Rapid City, adding to the wait list in those local areas. Districts of all sizes are seeing a sharp increase in students with significant behavioral needs that go well beyond traditional school settings. When services are unavailable locally, districts are forced to send these students to out of district, adding to costs significantly. HB 1262 creates no ongoing state revenue. Once operational, the program will be self-sustained with a partnership with Children's Home Society of South Dakota, allowing students to receive the right level of care while remaining close to home, which is hugely impactful to the success. This model has been proven already in Sioux Falls and Rapid City, helping students stabilize, build skills, and successfully reintegrate into their home districts. Northeast South Dakota is ready to move forward. Planning's complete, the stakeholders are all engaged, and services could begin as soon as this fall. It is a fiscally responsible investment. We believe all children deserve the right care as close to home as possible. House Bill 1262 not only shortens the wait list for kids in Sioux Falls and Rapid City that need the help, it also addresses a critical need for kids in District 1, 3, 4, 22, and 23. I ask the body to support 1262, not only for the kids that need the help, but also for the kids in our traditional settings that deserve a safe place to be able to actually learn. That's what this bill does. It allows us to focus on individuals that need this help in a setting that is safe and tailored to them. We're also allowing the rest of our students to be able to have access to a safe learning environment. That is exactly what we talk about doing in this chamber every single year, and this is a great opportunity for us to be able to do that. So I appreciate the senator from Yankton bringing the sister bill. I appreciate the body for supporting it, and I would ask you to support this as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Further remarks? Senator Souter.
Thank you, Mr. President. My fellow senators, I rise in support of HB 1262 because it is about giving students the opportunity to regain stability and to return to success in their home schools. Across South Dakota, educators are seeing more students who struggle to regulate behavior, manage trauma, or communicate distress in constructive ways. When the right intervention is available, students can build durable skills, not just temporary compliance, and they can return to their districts on a stronger trajectory. As the previous speaker said, this model is exactly what's being done in Sioux Falls and Rapid City successfully. By establishing a regional capacity in Northeast South Dakota, we ensure students can receive support earlier, closer to home, and in partnership with their local districts. This facility would also free up spaces in Sioux Falls and Rapid City, as the previous speaker said, so students in those areas could be closer to their homes as well. This bill is about outcomes. It's about strengthening students so they can return to their classrooms ready to succeed. For that reason, I urge you all to support HB 1262. Thank you.
Thank you. Further remarks? Senator Vilhauer.
Thank you, Mr. President. When I first heard about this, I got to express that I did not know a whole lot about it. I was actually somewhat jealous of the good senator from Brown County, and I noticed that when he rattled off the list of district benefit, District 5, my district was not included there. Well, I hope to change that. I've reached out to our superintendent in Watertown, asked him what he knew of the program. He had glowing things to say about this. I strongly support this and hope it becomes a model for other areas around the state that can benefit from this. Please vote yes. Thank you.
Thank you. Further remarks? Senator Perry.
Thank you, Mr. President and fellow senators. The senator from Brown, Roberts, Day, and Marshall was right on. I rise in support of 1262 because it strengthens South Dakota's statewide system of care. Currently, the majority of our school-based therapeutic capacity exists in either Sioux Falls or Rapid City. Northeastern South Dakota does not have a comparable regional access. When one region lacks infrastructure, the entire system feels the strain. Students are transported across the state, families are disconnected from daily engagement, capacity in other cities becomes compressed. HB 1262 corrects that imbalance. It does not cost or does not create a new program. It expands a proven model into the region demonstrating measurable needs. By doing so, it also builds a more coordinated regional continuum of care across South Dakota. Strong systems require balanced infrastructure. This bill moves us in that direction. I ask you for that support on behalf of D1, D3, D23, and hopefully D5 very soon. We appreciate you, and we appreciate your yes vote.
Thank you. Further remarks? Senator Lapke.
Thank you, Mr. President. Well, I want to thank the good senator from District 1, my neighboring district, for bringing this bill. I think we have a very good opportunity here that kind of utilizes state taxpayer dollars in an appropriate manner. We're going to make a one-time payment, and there's going to be no additional expense added. That's going to bring a really beneficial service to the Aberdeen area. The Aberdeen area really serves a large geographic region, and it's really cumbersome for those folks, and in a lot of time prevents these children from getting the exact care and help that they need to do better in life. So I think this is a good bill, and I'd appreciate your support.
Thank you. Further remarks? Seeing no further remarks, the question before the Senate is final passage of House Bill 1262. This is a 2/3 vote because of the appropriation and the emergency clause. When your name is called, those in favor vote aye, those opposed nay. The Secretary will call the roll.
Senators Beal, excused. Blanc? Carly? Crabtree? Davis? Dibert? Duhamel? Foster? Grove? Hone? Howard? Hulse? Jensen? Carr? Colbeck? Lapke? Larson? Marty? Melhoff? Miss Gimmons? Nelson? Otten? Perry? Peterson? Pischke? Reed? Roll? Sauter? Shanefish? Smith? Vilhauer? Voigt? Voida? Whiff? Zickman? Blanc? Mr. President, we have 30 yeas, 4 nays, 1 excused.
So House Bill 1262, having received an affirmative vote of a 2/3 majority of the members elect, the President declares the bill passed. Are there any questions on the title? Seeing none, it is deemed correct.
House Bill 1263, an act to eliminate an exclusion from the definition of an agricultural equipment dealer.
House Bill 1263, having had its second reading, is up for consideration and final passage. Are there any remarks? Senator Colbeck.
Thank you, Mr. President. House Bill 1263 clarifies the definition of a dealer for purposes of warranty reimbursement for agricultural equipment. The current law requires manufacturers of agricultural equipment to compensate their dealers for warranty work, which includes labor, parts, transportation of equipment, etc. However, current law does not require such compensation if the dealer is a mixed-use dealer, meaning the dealer sells both agricultural equipment and construction equipment, and the construction equipment side of their business is larger. Basically, the current law penalizes agricultural equipment dealers that also sell construction equipment by making them ineligible for warranty reimbursement under the law. HB 1263 remedies this by requiring warranty compensation under the law regardless of whether the dealer also sells construction equipment. Importantly, the warranty reimbursement requirement of the law only applies to agricultural manufacturers. HB 1263 does not expand the warranty reimbursement law to construction equipment manufacturers or provide the construction equipment dealers are entitled to the same compensation from their manufacturers as agricultural equipment dealers. Please support 1263.
Thank you. Further remarks on House Bill 1263? Senator Webb.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'll keep this really quick. I could take an hour and try to explain everything that I kind of unpacked on this issue, and I don't want to get the bulletin board with the string and the tax and all that.
Rules limit you to 10 minutes.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Well, I do want to correct a couple things that were said. Dealers are getting reimbursed. There is simply a different section of code that handles specifically ag dealers, and there are some other dealers that would like to get in on some better financial terms. And I don't fault them for that. Everybody has a client, everybody has a priority and a profit motive, and I just want to point out that they are getting reimbursed. This is just improving the terms on which they're getting reimbursed. This really, I guess, is just going to boil down to a couple things. It's going to be a great cash bonanza for a few dealers. It's going to be irrelevant for a large number of dealers, and it's going to be negative for consumers, because if manufacturers are saddled with higher warranty costs, they will pass those on to their customers, period. They're not just going to say, oh shucks, they got us, now we make less money. It would be the first time in the history of capitalism such a thing has happened. This will lead to higher costs for farm equipment purchasers and construction equipment purchasers. And so I think this is really a cash grab that's dressed up like a simple cleanup bill, and I'm going to resist the bill. I'd ask you to do the same. Thank you.
Thank you. Further remarks? Senator Jensen.
Thank you, Mr. President. I think this is a fairness issue. When it comes down to it, why should a dealer doing warranty work on one piece of equipment versus another pieces of equipment, whether it's off-road construction or farm equipment, why should they get paid different rates for doing the same work just because of what they sell more of? And that's really what it comes down to. When that dealer is performing the work, why should they accept a lower rate just because maybe their business expanded into one area, into construction rather than into agriculture? So when that happens, they all of a sudden get a lower rate for their warranty work. One of the arguments that was made and pushed pretty hard outside these walls was, well, if a farmer's equipment breaks down, they're going to get pushed to the back of the list because they can make more money doing the other equipment first. Well, we had two dealers that testified, and they said, how long would I stay in business if I left a farmer out in the field with a broken tractor or combine? These small rural dealerships rely on that ag industry. They're not going to let that farmer sit out in the field during harvest. They testified to that. And I don't disagree with the previous speaker. Yeah, this may get pushed up into costs, but let's face it, supply and demand, people are only going to be willing to pay so much for equipment. So I guess I just see it as a fairness issue. If I repair this piece of equipment or that piece of equipment, it shouldn't matter which equipment I sell more of if I make less money. That just doesn't make sense to me. Thank you.
Thank you. Further remarks? Senator Colbeck in closing.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would just like to, the good senator from Beetle Clark in Spink County makes some good points, and so did the senator from Minnehaha. I think when we look at the bill, though, we're just looking at something that can help probably some small towns in our state, because we've got people who cannot just be dealerships of agricultural equipment and cannot be just dealerships of construction equipment. So what we're just trying to do is fill that gap, hopefully fill some holes, get some farmers back in the field. Hopefully we'll have warranty work. If they buy that product, they'll stand behind that product, and we'll go from there. Please support 1263.
Thank you. Seeing no further remarks, the question before the Senate is final passage of House Bill 1263. When your name is called, those in favor vote aye, those opposed nay. The Secretary will call the roll.
Senators Beal excused, Blanc, Carly, Crabtree, Davis, Dybert, Duhamel, Foster, Grove, Hone, Howard, Hulse, Jensen, Carr, Colbeck, Lapke, Larson, Marty, Melhoff, Miss Gimmons, Nelson, Otten, Perry, Peterson, Pischke, Reed, Roll, Sauter, Shanefish, Smith, Vilhauer, Voigt, Voida, Whip, Zickman, Carly, Foster, Hulse. Mr. President, we have 28 yeas, 6 nays, 1 excused.
So House Bill 1263, having received an affirmative vote of a majority of the members elect, the President declares the bill passed. Are there any questions on the title? Seeing none, it's deemed correct. And without objection, we are going to revert to order of business number 5, reports of standing committees.
Mr. President, the Committee on Senate Taxation reports that it has had the following under consideration and returns the following. House Bill 1241, which was recalled. House Bill 1253 be amended and do pass. Submitted, Sue Peterson, Chair.
And we are up to the signing of bills. The Constitution of South Dakota requires that bills be signed by the President in open session and have their titles read. We've got 20 or so. At this time, the President is signing Senate Bill 240, an act to make an appropriation for county rural access infrastructure and to declare an emergency. And at this time, the President is signing Senate Bill 231, an act to create the Water Infrastructure Development Fund to provide an appropriation to provide for the awarding of grants and loans from the fund for certain water projects and to declare an emergency. And at this time, the President is signing Senate Bill 180, an act to modify requirements regarding non-domiciled commercial driver licenses. And at this time, the President is signing Senate Bill 142, an act to amend the requirements for filing certain campaign finance disclosure statements. And at this time, the President is signing Senate Bill 133, an act to provide additional legislative oversight of rulemaking. And at this time, the President is signing Senate Bill 130, an act to make an appropriation for roadway and related infrastructure improvements required because of construction activity at Ellsworth Air Force Base and to declare an emergency. And at this time, the President is signing Senate Bill 98, an act to prevent virtual currency kiosk fraud. And at this time, the President is signing Senate Bill 89, an act to create a task force to study the provision of emergency medical services as an essential service and the funding thereof. And at this time, the President is signing Senate Bill 45, an act to revise a provision regulating delta-8 tetrahydrocannabinol, THCO acetate, and hexahydrocannabinol for persons under the age of 21, and to provide a penalty therefore. And at this time, the President is signing Senate Bill 43, an act to address search and seizure provisions applicable to digital currency. And at this time, the President is signing Senate Bill 42, an act to enhance the penalties for ingestion, possession with intent to deliver, and delivery of controlled substances in a state correctional facility. At this time, the President is signing Senate Bill 17, an act to prohibit a candidate or political committee from accepting contributions or loans made by a foreign national to provide a penalty therefor, and to declare an emergency. At this time, the President is signing House Bill 1264, an act to eliminate the Agricultural Land Assessment Implementation and Oversight Advisory Task Force, and to provide that the Department of Revenue receive the submission of recommendations and provide a report on agricultural value. And at this time, the President is signing House Bill 1234, an act to revise provisions related to serving a subpoena in a contested case. And at this time, the President is signing House Bill 1193, an act to modify the provisions for a refund of taxes to disabled veterans and surviving spouses under certain property tax relief programs. And at this time, the President is signing House Bill 1188, an act to limit the liability of law enforcement officers and others when removing a disabled vehicle from a highway, a right-of-way, or public waters. And at this time, the President is signing House Bill 1164, an act to establish the crime of fraudulent assisted reproduction and provide a penalty and civil liability therefor. And at this time, the President is signing House Bill 1126, an act to revise a provision related to driving under the influence. And at this time, the President is signing House Bill 1107, an act to modify restrictions on lands for certain public purposes. At this time, the President is signing House Bill 1099, an act to reschedule pharmaceutical composition of crystalline polymorph psilocybin in a drug product approved by the Food and Drug Administration as a Schedule IV controlled substance. At this time, the President is signing House Bill 1092, an act to update provisions pertaining to open records. At this point, the President is signing House Bill 1049, an act to protect electric infrastructure in the state. Last one, the President is signing House Bill 1027, an act to update certain citations to federal regulations regarding pipeline safety inspections. Announcements. Senator Shanefish.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Education will meet tomorrow at 8:15. We're going to have 2 bills.
Senator Colbeck.
Senate Judiciary, final meeting tomorrow morning, 7:45, 3 bills.
Senator Lapke.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Appropriations, 9:30 tomorrow morning, 9:30.
Senator Pischke.
Thank you, Mr. President. We have Senate Ag and Natural Resources tomorrow. We have 2 appointments to the Brand Board. So if you're interested in the Brand Board, come to Senate Ag tomorrow at 10 o'clock.
Anyone else? Senator Perry.
Thank you, Mr. President. Tomorrow, or today, 8 p.m. Capitol Commission at Red Rosa. 8 p.m. Capitol Commission at Red Rosa.
Anybody else?
Senator Carley moves that the Senate do now adjourn.
It's been moved that we adjourn. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. We are adjourned.